So a good few years ago now, when I went over to Texas for the first time, I had my very first breakfast taco. And ever since then, I have been obsessed with eating breakfast tacos. Every time I go back over to Texas, I get so excited about going to food trucks and restaurants, anywhere that will sell breakfast tacos. But when I'm not in Texas, I make them at home very, very regularly. And that isn't just one of those YouTube things where people say like, I eat this meal 5 times a week for the last 10 years. Like, I genuinely make these all the time. I don't necessarily go to the lengths that I'm gonna go to in this video, but I'm making breakfast tacos at least 3 times a month with store-bought ingredients. And for me, when it comes to breakfast tacos, it has to have bacon, cheese, eggs, and probably potatoes at a very minimum. And because this is a barbecue channel, we need to go back in time and make some bacon. So it is 7 days before I plan on smoking this bacon, and that bacon is starting out as 1,308 grams of pork belly. So we'll put this to the side. And we're gonna be using the vacuum seal method for curing this bacon, and I would recommend that you get your bag together before you start the cure. The reason for that is, as soon as the salt hits this pork belly, it's gonna start drawing out moisture, so we're gonna move pretty quickly. I've pre-sealed one end of this. Once my pork belly is covered in the cure, it can go straight into here, get vacuum sealed, and try not to give it much time to pull out too much moisture, so when we do vacuum seal it, it's not gonna be filled with liquid and ruin my vacuum seal machine or prevent the bag from sealing. So in order to cure our bacon, we need to get our cure mixed together. The amount of cure we use is going to be based on the total weight of the pork belly, and you need to be pretty accurate, otherwise there's a chance it may not cure properly, which may lead to discoloration on the inside of the bacon. It may potentially become unsafe, and there'll be a link below to the bacon cure calculator that I use. I'd highly recommend that you use it to get you started. For the weight of the pork belly today, we're going to go in with 29.76 grams of regular salt, 13.8 grams of brown sugar, and 3.14 grams of Prague powder #1 or pink salt. Get this mixed round. This is the most basic cure recipe you could go for. Bacon, cure, and we have our bag. Get this cure onto the pork belly, and we're gonna massage it in, make sure it's all nice and covered. If any of this cure is left in here, then you're gonna throw your calculations off. Sprinkle our cure mixture, make sure it's well covered. Get that rubbed in, and just scraping up all of that cure mixture. Make sure that there's very, very little, if any, left in this pan. And once we've done that, we're going to go straight into our vacuum seal bag. Get this sealed up. That's seal 1. I'm going to go in for a second seal. And then we have our pork belly on cure in a nicely sealed bag. This is going to go into the fridge for the next 7 days. And every day I'm just going to go in there and just flip it over. Make sure there's a nice even distribution of that cure throughout. And in 7 days, we should come back to some nice, not yet smoked, but cured pork belly. Put this in the fridge. So exactly 1 week later, this bacon is and should be fully cured. And all we need to do now is smoke it. And we're gonna be smoking it on the pellet smoker today, purely because if you get a smoke tube going, it can actually bring up some pretty good smoky flavors. And I don't have time to manage the offset or any other type of manual pit, so the pellet grill will be fine. Feels a lot different to when it went in. It's much firmer, it's much heavier, and it's looking nice and red too. So this can go straight onto the pit as is, but I want to add some maple flavor to this bacon, and I don't have any maple powder, so I'm going to use the Chud's Barbecue Sweet Cheeks rub. It's not overly salty, so I'm not too worried about it over salting this bacon, because it's only going on the top, so we'll only get a very thin slice of it per slice. You could add anything to this. You could go with just pepper, maybe chili flakes. You could go with honey powder, anything you want. So we'll let that settle in a little bit and we'll get the pellet grill on. So as I say, we're going to be using a smoke tube. I feel like that's the only way to really get good smoke flavor on a pellet grill. And you get a surprising amount of smoke flavor when you do use a smoke tube cooking at low temps. And I think this is a blend from GMG. It's oak, hickory and mesquite. That should do. And we're going to go on top rack with our bacon, shut it down. And we are going to be smoking this pork belly at around 180 Fahrenheit for however long it takes to get this bacon up to around 155 internal temperature. And we're smoking nice and low because we want to give the bacon a chance to take on plenty of smoke flavor before it gets to that 155 internal. Come back in a few hours. So we got the soon to be smoked bacon on. Next, we need to make up some tortillas because there is nothing better with a breakfast taco than a homemade soft buttery tortilla. And I'm going to quickly get through making these up. If you want to see the full detail on how I make these, you can click this link above from my barbacoa video. Today, we're just going to get them done real quick. bread flour, butter flavored Crisco. You can use any fat. I like the butter flavor of the Crisco. Some baking powder, salt, milk powder. Get that mixed round just a little bit. And then we're gonna start off with about 3/4 of a cup of pretty warm water. Bring this together into a nice shaggy dough ball. All we're looking to do is hydrate the flour at this point. And that's all come together. We're just gonna put a lid on it and let it rest for about half an hour. 30 minutes later, onto the bench, just start to knead. This is how I like to do it. And about 5 minutes later, this has turned into a nice smooth dough. And we're gonna portion this out into about 40-gram dough balls. Dough balls ready to ball up. Gonna flatten it out, fold it over, pinch it at the end, and there we go. Or you could go for the rolling. And once they're all rolled out, we're gonna keep them in a Ziploc for at least an hour until we roll them out. Dust our bench, take one of our dough balls, and using as little flour as possible, roll this out as thin as we can. The thinner, the better, in my opinion. Very, very thin. Then into a medium-high heat dry pan. Once it's set up, give that a flip. And we're gonna cook these pretty light, pretty blonde to start off with. These are so, so soft. You can see that they're nice and fatty, almost translucent. Yeah, these are gonna be good. So they're coming out the hot pan into my tortilla warmer, and that's gonna steam them, keep them nice and warm. But ultimately, this batch are gonna cool down, and then tomorrow, when we make up our breakfast tacos, we'll bring these out, warm them up once more. This is what they look like. Really good color to them, super, super thin, and they are super fluffy. These are gonna go perfectly with our breakfast tacos. You cannot beat warm tortillas. Homemade flour tortillas. 5 hours later, 4.5 hours later, something like that, this pork belly or this bacon is now done. So we just need to take this inside and let it cool down. So the bacon is looking bacony, and you could definitely cut into this now, make some slices. However, it is gonna be far easier to cut once it cools down, and ideally fridge cold. So we're gonna let this cool down just on the countertop right now, and we'll put it into a Ziploc bag, put it into the fridge, let it firm up. So about 24 hours later, it's nice and cold, nice and firm. Fat's nice and firm, should be easy to slice. So this is the point where you can really choose how thick or thin your bacon is. This edge is kind of rounded, which isn't gonna work. So I'm gonna cut off this end and expose the bacon. This I will just cube up. Use this in some kind of pasta or something like that. Now we've got a nice flat edge to work with. A little tip I've learned to keep your bacon slices consistent and straight is to use something flat. I'm using just a plastic chopping board, and that will give you a nice edge to work with, and your slices should be nice and consistent. Move it along. It definitely smells like bacon, and we'll have some nice crispy, cured, smoky, mapley bacon ready for our breakfast tacos. Bacon is done. Now we are gonna make up some salsa. So if you've been to Austin, you've had breakfast tacos in Texas in general, you will be familiar with that green sauce, and there are definitely a million ways to do it. I'm gonna show you how I like to make it, and it works really well. What we have here is 4 jalapenos cut in half, and I've removed the spines and seeds from half of them, half a small white onion, and 4 cloves of garlic. Just behind me, I have a pot of water coming up to the boil. We'll take our jalapeno and our onion over and dunk them in. Just about come up to a boil, go in with our jalapenos and our onion. We're gonna let these go for about 10 minutes or so, just take away the rawness and soften them up a little bit. So these jalapenos and onions have softened up nicely. You could definitely char these off, put these over the barbecue. We're gonna go in with 2 of our garlic cloves, a big handful of coriander or cilantro, the juice of 1 pretty small lime. If you've got a really big one, then maybe half. No. Big fat pinch of salt. Now we're gonna get this blitzed up, and we're really gonna try and break this down as much as we can. And I want this to look very smooth. I don't want there to be flecks of green in there. I want it to be one smooth color. And to that, I'm gonna add 1 cup of vegetable oil and make a nice emulsion. Oftentimes it will be the oil added to this which makes it thick and creamy, not avocados as a lot of people think. Nice. I'm gonna say that if you are familiar with that classic taco truck sauce, you will be familiar with that color, you'll be familiar with that texture. You can see that it's nice and glossy, nice and emulsified. Taste test. Oh yeah, that is it. So the next part of the breakfast taco equation is gonna involve potatoes. More often than not, you're gonna find some kind of crispy cubed up potato pieces. It's a good textural contrast against the egg and the cheese. Sometimes you'll find hash browns. Adding potato to your breakfast taco is the perfect addition, and I absolutely have to have potato in mine. However, this video is about me showing you how I make my breakfast tacos. So my go-to is frozen hash browns. They are pre-made, ready to go. I cook them in the air fryer, so they're super crispy and crunchy on the outside. And yeah, that's what I go to. They take about 5 minutes in the air fryer and they are a good substitute for proper fried potatoes. So we're gonna get these into the air fryer. Super easy. And the other absolutely essential component for a good breakfast taco is cheese. I like to use this Monterey Jack. You may remember this from the burrito video I did a couple of weeks ago. There'll be a link below in the description where you can buy this if you're in the UK. Should be enough. And next, eggs. I usually go 1 egg per taco. Set those aside. Gonna go in with 2 bacon slices for now. Bring these up slowly, render out that fat, get them nice and crispy. Bacon is off, just set that aside for now. More butter than necessary. Eggs in, salt, mix these round. Let them set a little bit before you move them around each time. I mean, we're just making scrambled eggs, to be honest. And it's probably at this point where you'd want to add some fried corn tortillas or tortilla chips to your eggs to make up a migas. If you're doing a migas breakfast taco, which is one of my favorites. And then we've got some perfectly scrambled eggs into a nice cool bowl, just so they stop cooking. And now it's time to assemble our delicious breakfast tacos. Tortillas warmed up in a pan. We're gonna go in with our crispy hash brown, break that up, eggs, Monterey Jack cheese, and of course, homemade bacon. And there we have it, a perfect breakfast taco, homemade flour tortillas, homemade bacon. I think if you really want to step it up and give it that taco truck flair, then you need to wrap it in foil. Let that hang out for 5 minutes, let the steam soften up that tortilla even more, melt the cheese, and that is for me part of the charm of getting a taco truck breakfast taco. So good. Let's crack into one. Oh yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much better. And we can't forget our green sauce. I'm gonna drizzle that all over. Get into it. Homemade flour tortillas just elevate this to another level. You will not find a better tortilla, at least here in the UK, than you can making these at home. That's it, simple as. I've tried every tortilla available on the market in the UK. None of them even come remotely close to this. The crispy bacon as well, it just adds another level that you don't get with packaged bacon. And that green sauce, I do wish I made it a little bit spicier. The crispy hash brown, don't knock it until you've tried it. It does everything that the crispy potatoes do. Crunchy on the outside, kind of fluffy and soft on the inside. I can't stop eating. If and when I do a breakfast taco pop-up, which I will do at some point, they will all be wrapped in these little foil packages, and I hope that people leave them 4 or 5 minutes before they get into them, because it does just change it. I really love the effect that it has. Seems stupid, but I really like it. I've already put some green salsa in this, and that might not look that appetizing, but I'm telling you, definitely doing it for me. The only thing that would make this better is if I'd have made migas, fried up some tortilla chips, added them to the eggs. That would have been good. I should have done that, maybe next time. And the best thing about breakfast tacos is this is just how I like them. Really simple with bacon, egg, cheese, and potato. Ooh. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. Yep, that is what it was missing, hot sauce. As I was saying, there are literally an infinite number of ways that you can make breakfast tacos. You could use refried beans, you could add brisket, avocado, obviously chorizo is a super popular one. You can do whatever you want with it. This is how I like it. So thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, all those things. Really helps me out. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks for another video.